Am I the a-hole for not sleeping with my wife after she accused me of violating her? Hi all. As the title says, my wife accused me the other day of forcing her after sex, and it's making it really difficult to look at her anymore. For context, my wife and I have been married for 7 years and dated for 4 years prior. We've told each other everything there is to tell. She knows that I was assaulted as a child by my older brother, and I know she went through something similar. When we first started dating, she told me her ex used to violate her, and that really pissed me off. So much so that I found his work through his Facebook, found what time he got to work, literally by calling them and asking, and even found what bus he took to and from work. I was really ready to go to prison over this. Thankfully, a chance call from my wife stopped me from doing something I would now regret. Now, with that out of the way, you can understand my feelings going forward. Last week, while my wife and I were cuddled up after alone time, she said to me, "You know, technically you violated me." Naturally, I was both shocked and confused by this statement, especially since she was the one who initiated things and dragged me on top of her. So I asked her what she meant. She told me, "Well, I didn't actually want it. I only did that because I knew you wanted it." That one sentence has me questioning our whole relationship. How many times has she done something like this in the past, where she felt pressured into having sex without me even realizing it? Was she confusing sexual frustration with work frustration? Was I not being kind enough to her for her to think this way? Is this what she meant when she said her ex violated her? Was I really willing to go to prison all those years ago over something like this? Over a misunderstanding? I've had a lot of questions these last few days, and every time my wife initiates intimacy, all I can think about is that night. Will she accuse me of violating her again? Have I been moodier than normal? Why is she doing this? Is it actually because she wants sex, or just another case of doing it because she thinks that's what I want? I've mentioned my concerns to her and told her I don't feel comfortable having intimacy with her at the moment after her accusation, but she tells me I'm overreacting and should just take what's being offered. So, am I overreacting and being an a-hole, or are these feelings valid? P.S. I know this is a strange place to get validation, but my wife and I share the same friend group, and I don't really have any family I can trust to open up to about this. Posting here anonymously is the only way I can vent and be judged. Now for the top comments. Not the a-hole. Her response to you saying that you don't feel comfortable having sex due to her accusations is somewhat disturbing. You should take what's being offered is exactly what you did, and then she essentially weaponized that against you, knowing your traumatic history. How are you supposed to know if the next time she initiates, she won't turn around and say the same thing? That's very dark, dude. I don't want to be an armchair psychiatrist, so I'll just say this. If you want to save this marriage, you need to go to couples therapy, someone clinically trained. She may need more help individually as well. If I were you, I would start documenting things and wouldn't have sex with her until you get into therapy. You can't risk further accusations, although even if you don't have sex, she may still spread her narrative. You really need to protect yourself, or someone else might locate you and do to you what you are going to do to her ex. Reading this, I only now realized she's also telling him something very similar to what she called rape. When she accepts sex for her partner but she's not in the mood, he's raping her. When he does the same, he's just taking what is offered. Seems like some weird backwards logic. I do wonder what the thought process is. I would not touch her either. She initiated, consented to, and willingly slept with you, and then turns around and claimed rape. To be honest, once someone throws that word at you, it changes everything. You can't just ignore it and pretend it didn't happen. Yeah, it's a serious allegation to toss out, especially after doing the deed. This is why, even as a woman, I have a real problem with the blanket believe women narrative. I understand that movement was started to combat how victims are treated in the justice system and media, to end the dehumanizing treatment of victims when they report and go to court. But unfortunately, it often goes too far the other way. There are a lot of toxic women out there who take advantage of this, and it ruins lives. Some people seem to feel this is an acceptable collateral for positive change, but it really isn't. Next story. Am I the a-hole for telling my boyfriend if he doesn't propose, before the end of this year I will start planning my future without him? I, 36 female, have been with my boyfriend, 36 male, for 5 years. When we started dating, I told him that I wanted us to grow together and that I was dating with the intention of marriage. He said he was more slow-paced with everything he does, and that if we made it 5 years together, he would feel comfortable proposing. We talked about this throughout the relationship, so it was well established, and we both agreed. Even though 5 years seemed a bit too long for me, I was understanding because his last relationship, which ended 2 years before we met, ended with him buying a ring and then getting dumped. Fast forward to now. We've been together all these years, and during that time we even had a child together, yet he still hasn't proposed. I brought it up earlier this year, pointing out that this is our 5th year together, and that I would really like us to take the next step in our commitment and get engaged by the end of the year, our anniversary. He started telling me that he doesn't see the point anymore and doesn't believe in marriage because it's just a piece of paper, and there's no need to get the government involved. I told him that wasn't the point, that this was about expressing our devotion to one another and solidifying ourselves as a family. I even offered to do a different type of ceremony where we wouldn't have to involve the government, because for me, it's not about the paperwork. He kept making excuses, so I asked him where he wants to be in the next couple of years. He said he just thinks about things day to day. I told him that if he doesn't get it together and propose by the end of the year, I will have to reevaluate his role in my life and make future plans that don't include him, since he is showing me that he doesn't want to be included. He said I'm an a-hole for forcing him to propose and that he doesn't want to. I told him that's fine, he doesn't have to, but I also don't have to sit around waiting for him and wasting my time on someone who doesn't want to grow old with me, build a life together, get married, and raise a family. Edit. When we first had to talk about marriage at the beginning of our relationship, he expressed wanting to be married. He just wanted to take his time to be sure we'd last, because he didn't want to be left eventually if things didn't work out. Over the years, he would bring up marriage, buying a house, and other long-term plans fairly often, and it's only now that he's done a complete 180 and says he doesn't believe in marriage anymore. Not the a-hole, but I would not have had a child with a man who wasn't ready to propose if that was important to me. But it's clear he doesn't want marriage, so if you're not happy with the status quo, it's time to move on. You've always been clear about what you want in the long term. Okay, I don't understand this "we have a child together, but I couldn't possibly commit to marriage with you" line of thinking. I can't imagine a bigger commitment than having a child with someone. You've added a human. It's not like let's share a puppy. A marriage is several legal contracts tied into one, wildly easy-to-sign piece of paper, which can have major financial impacts on an individual. A baby only legally obligates a person to child support for a finite time period. For some people, a baby is cheaper and easier than a marriage. He said I'm an a-hole for forcing him to propose and that he doesn't want to. I mean, you are being an a-hole there, largely to yourself. Why in the world would you even want to marry someone who doesn't want to marry you? Don't get me wrong. It's absolutely fine if you decide to move on because he's not willing to take that next step with you. But by giving him an ultimatum, all you've done is assure that if he does propose, it won't be because he actually wants to marry you, but because he feels like he has to, or you'll leave. That's not exactly a fairy tale marriage, is it? I would start planning for a life without him, because he has made it clear that marriage is not what he wants. He also doesn't want me to leave, and says I'm an a-hole for pushing the issue. Yeah, he's happy with the way things are. You're not. You want more. Neither of you are wrong there, but you're not compatible as far as what you want your futures to look like. Next story. Am I the a-hole for not engaging with my wife after she read my private journal? Our relationship went through a really rough patch a few years ago, and during that time, I felt like I couldn't do anything right. Every conversation turned into an argument. Every attempt to make things better seemed to backfire, and I felt like we were constantly walking on eggshells around each other. Instead of dealing with the problems in a healthy way, I made the worst choice I could have made. I cheated with a coworker. That was the breaking point for my marriage. When my wife found out, things blew up. There was anger, crying, shouting, Everything you'd expect. But over time, after a lot of uncomfortable conversations, we managed to work through enough of the hurt to be on speaking terms again. We are not together romantically anymore, but we have stayed under the same roof for the sake of the kids. We have a functioning friendship now and have agreed that when the kids are older, we'll go through with the divorce. Since then, I've been in therapy and started journaling as a way to process everything. Writing has helped me get my thoughts straight, understand what led me to cheat, and reflect on how our relationship went so wrong. I've also been brutally honest in those entries about how I felt about my wife during that rough period: resentment, anger, frustration. I even wrote about my hopes for the future, including eventually finding someone who might be a better fit for me than she ever was. The journal was always meant to be private. We live in separate bedrooms, and I keep it in my nightstand. Yesterday, for some reason, my wife decided to clean my room, which she never does, and found it. She read the entire thing and then completely lost it. We haven't had a fight since the discovery of my affair, so I wasn't ready to deal with that kind of blow-up again. I stayed quiet and let her vent, but she got even angrier when I didn't respond. Eventually, she threw the journal at me and shouted that she couldn't believe how cruel I was and how horrible the things I wrote about her were. I told her flatly that it was a private journal and that she had no right to read it. She started crying and said it was unfair, that I was blaming her for everything and acting like she was the only reason our marriage fell apart. I told her it doesn't matter anymore. We've already agreed to end things when the kids are older. She has her reasons for the way she acted, and I have mine for what I did. But none of that changes the reality that our marriage is over. I told her I didn't want to talk about it anymore, and now she's furious at me for shutting the conversation down. Now for the comments. Everyone sucks here but you the most, by quite a significant margin. This is where I landed too. I don't know why the wife continues to torture herself by living with this man, who promised to love and cherish her, but actually hates her guts with every fiber of his being. But OP is a piece of turd of the lowest caliber. She did something deeply inappropriate in her grief and insecurity. He gave her all that grief and insecurity. Just divorce and separate. This ain't healthy for you or the kids. Best advice. I know from personal experience. Seeing my parents always at odds with each other, I was so happy and relieved when they divorced. Kids do pick up on this, and seeing it, living with it creeps into them, and they mimic it with their own relationships. I wish my parents got divorced. They just made everyone else around them miserable instead. I honestly don't get why people always say divorce is automatically bad for kids, but rarely talk about how damaging it is for kids to grow up with parents who clearly don't love each other and are just waiting for divorce. Do you think kids are stupid? I have friends who grew up in homes full of conflict, misery, and resentment, and the amount of trauma they carry now is huge. Most of it could have been avoided if their parents had just separated and built happier lives far away from each other. Do everyone a favor and get a divorce. Everyone sucks here. Last story. Am I the a-hole for not wanting my baby to have a middle name connected to my husband's late wife and baby? For some context, I'm a 34 female and my husband is a 40 male. He has a daughter who's 12. 8 years ago, my husband lost his wife and baby while she was in labor. It took him a long time to heal from it, and to some extent, he still hasn't. He's in therapy, and I think it's helped as much as it could. My husband and I just had a baby shower, and we found out we are having a girl. We've been discussing names, and even let my stepdaughter help pick the middle name. My husband suggested Annie, and his daughter agreed. It took a while for it to click, but I realized who that name belonged to. I didn't disagree in front of my stepdaughter, as I didn't want to hurt her feelings, but then they tried to make his second middle name the name of their late baby. I left the room and my husband followed me. He asked why I left, and I told him I didn't like the names they were picking and that I wanted different middle names. He got mad and said that these are the names he wants for our child, that my stepdaughter wants them too, and that they have meaning to them. He said these names are important to them. I kind of blew up at him and told him that I didn't care and that I didn't want my kid to have those names. I left the house, went to my sister's place, and have been here for a week. He still says he wants those names for the baby, and he argues that since I got to pick the first name, he should get to choose the middle names. I told him that I made sure he was okay with the first name beforehand. I tried to have a civil conversation about why I don't want those names, which mostly came down to the fact that his family, friends, and everyone else constantly compare me to his late wife, whether it's my cooking, my looks, how I take care of his daughter, or even my pregnancy. I explained that I don't want my child to have the same name as the woman I'm always compared to. He still didn't understand and said that the names are important to him and that he really wants to keep a part of them alive in his life. I don't know what to do. Multiple people have told me I'm wrong, that this is important to him, and that I should just let him do it. But I don't know. Am I the a-hole? Honestly, OP, I don't think he was ready for marriage or a baby. And situations like this, when you lose your partner so tragically, you never quite get over it. And he probably sees this girl you're having as the girl he lost with his first love. Now, I'm not saying he doesn't love you, but it seems like he was looking for a mom for his first daughter, or someone to help him raise her and have more kids with him to fill that hole. If that wasn't the case, why would he let everyone and their mother keep comparing you to his dead wife? I guess it's all their loss too, but it's supremely unfair to not even consider how it might affect you every time they say it. You need to have a talk with your partner in therapy and let him know how all of this feels to you respectfully and go from there. I think it's weird that he wants to name his new kid the name of his old kid or wife, as she has no connection to you. I'm sure he'd be just as upset if you wanted to name your kid after your dead husband or the child you had with him that passed. Exactly. He married you, not a memory he refuses to bury. Not the a-hole. I would have this conversation in front of a therapist. This isn't just a name. This is telling a new baby that they will never be the baby you lost, and you aren't over it. This is not allowing a new baby to be themselves, to make them carry the burden of your grief every day of their life. They never get to be themselves. They have to be a legacy, a lost future. This doesn't have meaning. It is cruel. He can't erase his pain by making a new baby carry it. Naming her after ghosts just chains her to sorrow forever.